In honour of the season being over and the transfer mayhem beginning, here are 5 storylines that you need to look out for in the summer window. Right, first off, and basically this has been a storyline for the past few seasons. Where will Arsenal go to scratch that striker itch? It's been pretty clear that a goal-scoring centre-forward would have helped them in their quest for a trophy in seasons gone by, and despite Mikel Merino doing his best rendition of a striker towards the back end of the campaign, he isn't one, and you don't win titles without someone taking on the lion's share of the goal-scoring burden. Well, except for the time that Man City won the title with 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 as top scorer, but there's always an anomaly in the data. So, who will be the answer to Arteta's prayers? Well, Gyokeres seems like the most realistic and sensible transfer, and in lieu of any other competition, they seem to have a clear run at signing the Swede. He's been on absolute fire since signing for Sporting 2 years ago, and with over a goal a game and at 26 years old, he's coming into his prime. Oh, and if that wasn't good enough, 60 million for a top striker these days is pretty good going. If they don't manage to get that deal done though, someone like Šeško or Watkins could be a good fit as both a much needed goal scorer and a target man. What would also be interesting off the back of this, though, is who of the attacking options would be let go and for how much money. Gabriel Jesus seems like the obvious choice to depart, but won't really fetch too much of a hefty price tag given his injury record in the past few years. And apart from him, they don't really have any big-name players that they'd be willing to sell. There then would also be the question of whether Kai Havertz fits into this new Arteta system if they are building a future around a bona fide number 9. The next story, though, revolves around the club as a whole, and it's Manchester United, and it's basically what on earth they do in the next 3 months. Just when Ruben Amorim thought he had a big job at his hands, it's now arguably got even bigger, having missed out on European football with that Europa League final loss. It means that they miss out on the attraction of offering Champions League football to new players and the money that comes with playing in Europe's elite competition. It now also means that whilst Amorim will have his plans of who he wants to bring in and who he wants to kick out, there's also the question of whether or not the club see him in charge for the long run, and therefore will they be backing him in the transfer market. The signing, though, of Matheus Cunha from Wolves is a good start in general. I always felt like in Amorim's system, the likes of Garnacho and Diallo really weren't the best at playing that supporting role behind 𝗬𝗏𝗏 and 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. They're almost too much of a wide player to be that central, but not wide enough to be in the wing-back role where they'd be slightly too defensive. Matheus Cunha, though, really fits that central attacking role perfectly. He's played up front for Wolves, but also in support of 𝗬𝗏𝗏 and just fits the middle of the pitch better. I feel like it also allows for United to play Bruno deeper if they want, without then sacrificing their creativity further forward, because Cunha can now pick up that slack. If he can add goals to this United team, which given his 15 Premier League strikes at Wolves last season, there's no reason to believe he can't, it might take a bit of the spotlight away from the fact that 𝗬𝗏𝗏 and 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 can't put 15 together between them. I mean, if you really just want to see how bad things are in front of goal for the club, look at the fact their top scorers in the league are Diallo and Fernandes with 8 goals each. That's half of what Cunha is bringing to the table, and something that I've no doubt United will be keen to address. Just out of interest, the third highest scorer was Garnacho with 6, who's now been told that he can find a new club. And the next big story to look out for is whether or not Liverpool can improve on an unbelievable first season for Arne Slot. In fact, we spoke about this a few weeks ago, just how good they have been in the Dutchman's first season in charge, and you can find that video right here. They seem to really have taken a leaf out of Manchester City's book in the last few years by not only resting on what they've achieved, but continuing to build for the next season and future seasons to come. Look out for the incoming Frimpong, Kerkez and even Florian Wirtz on their way into the club early summer, but don't rule them out even stopping there. I'd go as far as saying another forward could be on the way depending on whether or not 𝗬𝗏𝗏 Núñez leaves the club. The main issue they'll face here is the transfer fee situation, whereby no club in their right mind would pay anywhere close to the potential 100 million euros that Liverpool paid for the Uruguayan back in 2022. In all honesty, a loan deal for him might actually work out best. I mean, look what it did for Anthony. Normally, I'd say they need another striker, even if Núñez doesn't leave, because relying on one player like Salah isn't really sustainable for all of their goals. However, this is Mo Salah we're talking about. He's just that good, he's just that consistent, and he's just that reliable. It's fair to say that Liverpool are also heading into a bit of a transition period. Trent is out, Robertson could follow, time will catch up with Van Dijk, Alisson and Salah eventually, but if they can come out with it with some of the signings I mentioned earlier, having not fallen off in terms of performance or trophy winning, we could be looking at a new Premier League era of dominance for them. Moving on then, and to the FA Cup winners Crystal Palace, who will be busy building their squad to fit in with their new European schedule. Oliver Glasner has led the club to Europe as a result of winning the Cup, and he's a man who is very familiar with the competition, so you feel like he'd be pretty busy this summer at Selhurst Park. Sadly though, and it just seems to be the way it goes in these money-spinning transfer windows, the focus may be on who is leaving more than who is coming in. Of course, they've got players who will be buzzing to be in Europe, but if a Champions League club comes in with an even higher level of European football and the money that comes with it, we could see the likes of 𝗬𝗍𝗧𝗏 and Wharton all choose to make the giant step up. 𝗬𝗍 in particular is one who has been linked with every Premier League club under the sun, but will likely be the most expensive player to prize away from South London. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 was subject to a huge bid from Spurs in the January transfer window, and given their lack of depth in defence, don't be surprised if they reignite their interest. The one thing that Palace always have on their side though is that being a Premier League club for quite some years and now being in Europe too, they don't really have to sell for financial reasons. I mean, they managed to hold on to 𝗬𝗍𝗏 throughout his prime years because nobody would pay the 70-odd million that they wanted. Whether you think 𝗍𝗏 is worth that is neither here nor there for this matter and video. It's more the fact that they could afford to say no to anything less without desperately having to grab for the cash. As for the others, I can't see them really being in a rush to leave, but let's keep it positive for Palace. They're now in Europe. This means they'll be able to attract a calibre of player that they may not have been able to in the recent seasons. Of course, I'm not saying they're going to go for the brand new, most expensive, shiniest toy out there, but being in Europe does open a few more doors. As for the final big story to look out for this summer, it's Spurs and another sliding door moment in the club's history. The last one was in 2019, where after losing to Liverpool in the Champions League final, they didn't really spend well in the summer and build on what Pochettino had done in the preceding years. But as fortune would have it, they have another opportunity to do so now as European champions, having won the Europa League. It's fairly easy to draw the parallels with Man United in this case, as you could argue that some incoming players may not be given a 100% guarantee that the manager will even be in charge for very long, and the club do need a big squad overhaul. But unlike United, they now have the money and prestige of Champions League football to offer prospective signings. I've mentioned 𝗬𝗏𝗏 before, and I think it's unlikely that he'll sign for Spurs, but heading into another season when they've got 4 competitions on the books, they definitely need another defender. Cristian Romero is still the subject of a lot of transfer talk. Mickey van der Ven can't stay fit for a whole season. Ben Davies looks like he could be leaving the club at the end of his contract, and 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗓𝗓 has been, let's call it, unspectacular. That basically just leaves Kevin Danso. On top of this though, another forward is needed to supplement Dominic Solanke's efforts. He isn't as prolific a striker as you'd need to get into the top 4 in the league, and without a solid replacement, he'll also be running to the ground if he's leading the attack 2 or 3 times a week for the next 10 months. But Champions League talk aside, nobody at the club will want to be flirting with relegation next season either, meaning a busy summer at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is something that definitely could be on the cards. When it comes to who and for how much, I think it'll be more a case of a numbers game and bolstering the squad as opposed to a one-in, one-out policy. With the injuries that Spurs face this season, they can't afford to be fighting on all 4 fronts with a patchwork squad again. In the last few transfer windows, we've seen the club go for promise and potential with the likes of Gray, Bergvall, Udogie, 𝗕𝗓𝗏𝗏, and Solanke is the only standout big money transfer of last summer. So don't be surprised to see them go in the opposite direction and bring in a little bit more experience this time around. I'm not saying go full Ivan Perisic like under Conte, but a player or 2 with Champions League and Premier League experience seems more than likely. So with all that said and done, which one of these clubs do you think is going to be the biggest mover in the summer transfer window, and who actually needs to be? Let me know in the comment section down below. Subscribe for loads more 442 content, and I'll see you in the next video.